I watched the worst Rachel Zegler film yesterday, and no, it wasn't Snow White and the 7 Discord mods. It was Y2K, which is unsurprisingly about Y2K. If you don't know what Y2K is, I wasn't around then. I spawned in like a year afterwards, 85 days after a few planes were caught by a few buildings in the States. But basically, Y2K was when the year was turning from 1999 to 2000. And back then, computers weren't the smartest, so computers, to save on memory, computers, when they were talking about the year, they just used the last 2 letters. So if it was 1995, they'd use 95. If it was 1998, they'd use 98. Everyone realised the computers are going to get really confused and think we've gone back 100 years or gone back 99 years when it hits 2000, because the computers will just read it as 00, or they'll even think there's no year at all. And in reality, I don't think anything bad, actually, sorry, there's a cyclist in my way. I don't think anything serious actually happened. I think a few nuclear reactors in Russia failed a little bit, but nothing serious. It definitely wasn't Chernobyl. Oh, look at this. There's a nice Ferrari going past. That's cheered me up a little bit after watching this shit film. The film isn't based on true events. The film is based on as if Stephen King wrote history and predicted the future to what happened in Y2K, because all the robots conjoin and start killing everyone. Somewhat of an interesting concept and could be entertaining and could be a good film as well. But sadly, it was a shit film. As I've already mentioned, ye old Snow White, I think we should start on the actors and the characters. The main character is painful to watch. I really wish he died. Spoilers, his friend died instead, the Australian, which I don't actually quite know why they chose him to be Australian. They didn't go in, all he had was the accent and an Australian flag in his car. A car which they either couldn't afford to get a new one or gave to a different character by the end of the film, which was strange as well. But all of the actors in it are terrible. They're all terrible. Except for Rachel Zegler, or I don't know how to pronounce her surname, but just call her Snow White. She is the best actor out of all of them, but with the script that they're given, it's extremely painful, and she's trying her best, but it's just not working. The script is woeful, it is full of cliches, and the impression I got was that they wrote down story points, very cliche story points, generic teenagers, introduce condom here, make sure we know this guy's Australian, because then it adds some character to him, even though it doesn't. Introduce hippie character here, the new year happens here and everyone dies and is the only 5 entertaining minutes of the film. And use the condom by the end of the film. It's Chekhov's condom, basically. It is the cringiest shit on the planet. They try and play it up for laughs, but it just doesn't work, because the characters don't know how to be funny. And the writing itself also isn't funny. So the actors can't work with the script because the script is so woeful. And also it's rushed, which is weird to say because it was so boring, the hour and a half I was in there. Because let's say they introduce something and then, ouch, in the literal next scene they resolve that something or explain it. Like there's one scene where a character dies and another female character is upset that he dies and like touches his face. And in the literal next scene, another character says, was he really your friend or did you just like sleeping with him? And it's just so on the nose. And then the girl gets annoyed and it's just not earned. It's just such lazy writing that you can tell that they've made it up as they went along and never went back to like, all right, how can we restructure this so it's a bit better? In terms of story structure, the first half an hour is woeful. It is full of cliches. The parent characters are insufferable and you really hope that they die by the end of it. Sadly they don't. The 2 main characters, they mention a character called Lauren, Lauren, and they like say that she is the she's the hottest girl at the school that everyone wants to get with, and unsurprisingly it's Rachel Zegler, which I hate to be that guy, but is she the hottest person at the school? It's just going to leave, it's a matter of opinion. I'm just going to leave it up for people to make their opinion on that. Kid Leroy is in it. He's good at singing. He's good at playing a very cliche, shitty person. But he's bad at acting. And he dies via a microwave. The deaths were entertaining. I'll give you that. But it isn't realistic. It isn't shocking. It's just goofy. You can like someone's holding their arm where their hand's been cut off, and it's very obvious that he's just like got his arm rolled up in his sleeve and it's just a prosthetic like that he's holding, and it's got fake blood squirting out and everything. Speaking of the actual special effects, there were a lot of real life effects, like the robots in it. Yeah, because the machines didn't just kill them by being their own machines, they somehow formed together. Don't ask. But the machines were very obvious costumes because they became humanoid with legs and arms. So it was obviously just someone in the costume walking in it, but it was practical. So I guess that's a plus. But then on the few scenes where you do see CGI, you see why they didn't do those as CGI, because the CGI is shite. But sadly, that's quite normal in modern films to have really shit CGI. There's one shot that I liked where they go outside this house party, because it all happens in a house party to begin with. I thought the whole film would be set in a house party, in the house for the house party, but it wasn't. And as soon as they leave the house, you just see these two planes crashing, which was quite cool, I'll be honest. But the cinematography itself was really lackluster. It just feels like they were just robots, like pumping out a film just to make money, as if no one actually cared about it. As the only people who it seemed that actually cared about this film were the people who did the like the computer graphics and tried to recreate that late 90s, early 2000s, or Y2K to be specific, obviously, feel, which was actually good. I think that they did a good job creating or mimicking the memes around that time and what the style of content on computers would look like back then. I think they did a good job mimicking that. Oh, my favourite creature, a cyclist. Less cruel to 9 miles per hour. I actually don't know where I am. I've come a really weird way back home from the cinema. I was surprised when I went on the Cineworld app to book this, that they were only showing it in the middle of the day. Luckily, I have a day off today, so I felt like a dosser all day, which is quite fun, to be honest. But I am not surprised, now that I've seen the film, as to why it's not on for like in any evening slots. Also because they're probably trying to promote Snow White more, because they need to scrape some money back from that mess of a film. The most entertaining part while I was watching the film was the pick and mix I had. I stopped when I started to feel sick, but I was just so bored. I was like, I need to finish these because there's just nothing else to do. And the thing is, as I said, it was so boring, but it was so rushed. It was an hour and a half worth of film. The first half an hour was setting up these characters, which is what most films do. But they aren't characters. They're cliches. You could describe them more than adequately in 3 words. It's quite a cool road, actually. There was no chemistry between any of the characters. It just felt like the story was just jumping from point to point to point to point after the first half an hour, may I add. There's this scene where the 2 main characters, they go to a shop and then they see another character. You know that cliche in a film where they're out in public somewhere in a place they know, because they know the store owner, who is of course the cliche hippie, because they're the cliche 2 friends which aren't friends with anyone else because they're the nerds, and they like going to this video store which has a huge porn collection in the back. I'm pretty sure the first words they speak to each other is about who they want to have sex with, and introducing the condom, as I already mentioned. A character then comes into the store and the 2 characters speak between them while the camera has a shot on this character and they're talking about that character to like introduce that character to the audience. You know what, that's fine. A lot of films do that. Cool. It's fairly, feels fairly natural that they've just bumped into someone and then they're talking about them. But then, is that my exact car coming towards me? Oh my god, yo, we snap, boy. That's crazy. And then they walk into another store, and then they bump into another character, Rachel Zegler's character, and they do the exact same thing with her as a character as well. They have this weird, unnecessary drug scene as well, which again, at the beginning of in the first half an hour of the film, so just longs it out for no reason. There's no payoff to this scene where a character does some drugs, and it like zooms in on him and tries to do some weird editing to show how he feels on drugs. Editing is shit as well, because it's very obvious that the practical costumes that they had to be these machines, they probably just didn't trust them enough. So they'd have like a shot on the robot, maybe swing it. This is while they're fighting like a robot, for example, like the robot swinging its arm, and then it would do another really quick close-up cut of one of the characters, it's just so obvious that they're not showing the robot and the character in the same shot. They were just too lazy to do it, I assume. And the whole film just gives that vibe of just pure laziness. And it's a shame because it could actually be quite a good concept, but this concept has kind of been done before Y2K actually, and it's called Maximum Overdrive. It's a film that Stephen King wrote, not as a book, but specifically to be a film. It's like Christine, his very famous book and really shit film. But basically all the cars and like robotized things with computer chips in become sentient and try to kill all humans. And it is actually a very good film. It's a film of its time. It does have its own fair share of cliches and over-the-topness, with some petrol station owner having a rocket launcher and an arsenal, which is convenient, but it's a Stephen King story at the end of the day. What do you expect? That's the kind of level you expect a film about all robots trying to kill humans to be. Now, they could have gone down a different route as well with this film, where it was more realistic. Speaking of realism, there's scenes where Rachel Zegler's character, because she's a master hacker, because of course she is, has to hack into the computer, and it's just so goofy. I don't know anything about coding or any of that, but even I felt pain watching it. God knows, if someone who was actually into like computer science and knew coding languages and how to code and interact with computers in that way, they'd have an aneurysm watching that scene. And to explain to the audience, because they just couldn't think of another way of doing it, there's a screen there with this another humanoid avatar on it, which speaks to the characters and it knows that it's being hacked into, and instead of stopping them hacking into them itself, it takes the piss out of it. Like they go around to the back of this computer, and a keyboard flops down. If you're a sentient computer, you can just disconnect the keyboard from working, and they can't hack you. It's just really dumb shit like that. I mean, I guess maybe I'm looking into it a bit too much because it is supposed to be a goofy film, but it's also a shit film, and that is when they use the condom at the end. Yeah, I know. And there's a few death scenes in it, and it's just so rushed as well. It's supposed to be all meaningful, but no one cares about the character, because all the character has that's special about him is that he's Australian. And the other main character, who's the one there crying because his friend's dying, can't act for shit. So it's just makes it more embarrassing to watch. And you just want them to hurry up with this death scene so you can move on to the next bit, and then move on to the next bit, which is exactly what the film did. There was no interlinking different. I don't know what I'm on about. It's almost like I don't make films. I'm just here to chat shit. But yeah, if they did go for a more realistic route, and it was maybe there's like a power cut, and everyone, I don't know what technology was even around then. Like planes started falling out the sky, they would have had technology in them or some shit like that, or some cool stuff like that. Literally, it could have been a completely different storyline, and it would have been good, not full of shitty cliches. There's a famous person in it as well, which I don't know who that is. I think he's a singer or something. He's in it, and I was like, this is a bit. How much did they pay him to be in this abomination? You know. And he sings at the end, which is also fucking woeful. And then there's all these captive humans who are going to become slaves, and they start singing along with this musician who pops in to say hi. It's just, I don't even know what to say. It's like, I can't even describe like how shit it is. You have to go and watch it. Now, I take that back, actually. You don't have to go watch it, because even though it's a short film for modern standards, it's only an hour and a half. That fucking hour and a half drags. There is 5 minutes in it which is entertaining, and it's where it turns to the new year, the lights go out, and everyone starts dying in this house party. That is the only entertaining part. You can tell it's trying to be funny as well. There's a few scenes where like it bigs up these characters about to have like a fight or do something cool, and then they just die. But it does it twice, and it does it to characters that you don't care about either. So yeah, in conclusion, cinematography was really bloody boring. Doesn't have to be exciting, it was just bloody woeful, and was used to make up for their lack of special effects. CGI itself was shit, even though luckily it wasn't overused on, which is good. The only positive is the graphics to mimic the Y2K era feeling, which was actually good. And I'm sure it was not, again, I wasn't alive then, but I'm sure it was quite nostalgic for people that lived around then. Oh, another thing, which was really weird choice for a film that's very specifically based on a certain moment in time. They used modern music in it, which isn't the end of the world. Some films have done that, but it's not really the best at capturing that vibe because it is specifically based around this certain time in the past. But weirder, there were these two characters who were like ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, and they were using slang and terminology which is very modern and was not... Shut up, Carl, I'm not going to crash into this Honda. Or will I? And was not used back then. And there's only, been a thing recently. And I was like, that was just really... Well, number one is lazy, and number one is weird. It's because of the goofiness of the film as well. I just feel like it was aimed at like 12-year-olds, because like, oh, look at that funny, they're dying in funny ways, so it's not actually scary. And oh, it's all over the top. They slide down a hill in a portaloo and get shit all over them. Oh, haha, he gets angry afterwards and throws his shoes in the water, which again, that was out of nowhere. And it just makes you hate the main character because he's just gets angry over everything, has no charisma, and it's just kind of, you can just tell he wouldn't be nice to be around, if that makes sense. But it's an 18 rated film. There is an because I'm assuming because they think it'll be funny or edgy, there's quite a few times where it shows porn on computer screens. The violence as well is too violent for it to be a 12 rating because someone does literally get their head set on fire. But again, even though I assume they were playing the violence for shock value, it just wasn't. Maybe they were trying to go for like, half an hour of absolutely nothing, then 5 minutes of all this violence. The audience can be shocked. Just weren't. It was just boring. It was just exactly what you'd expect in terms of like shitty, goofy violence in a really shitty, goofy film. But in conclusion, don't watch this. Go watch Maximum Overdrive. It is far better. It has better characters. Most of the characters in Maximum Overdrive you'll hate as well. It's a Stephen King film, isn't it? But it is still just so much better and a better way of doing the concept. You actually feel the dread for the characters and it's more entertaining. Well, I'm just going to go if you're not going to move then. But yeah, don't watch this film. It is not worth an hour. It's not even like a Fast and Furious film where it's like kind of shit and goofy and bad CGI, but at least it's entertaining and you can switch your brain off and enjoy it. It's not even that. It's just drat. I gave it a 3 out of 10 because Rachel Zegler, no matter what your opinion on her is, she is the best actress there, and she did try, but the script was shit. Someone clearly did care about the graphics on the computers and like the credit sequence. I know, it's bad when I'm complimenting the credit sequence.